She watched him burn it. That's the part no one understands. Not the decree. Not the stripped title, or the seized manor, or the brother locked in chains before he was even old enough to shave. The part that broke something irreparable inside Seraphina Vale was standing in the rain watching King Lucian Thorne read the order aloud, fold it precisely, and hand it back to his commander without a single tremor in his hand. He didn't look at her once. 5 years. 5 years she had believed his crown meant something, that the Vale name meant something, that the man she had once saved on a rain-soaked road called Greyfen, the boy who bled into the mud and held her hand like she was the only solid thing left in the world, that man was still somewhere inside the king. He wasn't. So she swore she was done. Done with House Thorn. Done with the bond she'd spent years pretending she couldn't feel. Done with Lucian, his gold eyes, his careful silences, his crown that cost her everything. Except fate has a vicious sense of humor, because now it's one night before her brother hangs. The council that used Lucian's decree to destroy her family has turned against the king himself. And somehow, impossibly, Seraphina Vale is the only person standing between King Lucian Thorne and everything closing in around him. The man who signed her life away needs her. And she has to decide right now, in the ruins of St. Aldrich's Cathedral, with black wax still staining her palm, whether she is going to let him burn the way she did, or save him anyway. She doesn't remember gripping it that tightly. The parchment just appeared in her hands that way, fingers white at the knuckles, the royal seal bent where her thumb had pressed the page without thinking. Black wax, the silver wolf of House Thorn, cracked clean through the center. She stares at it. St. Aldrich's Cathedral breathes around her. Broken pews, candle wax frozen in rivers across the stone floor. Rain finding its way through the ruined rose window in thin, cold threads. The air smells of smoke and old incense and something she cannot name. The smell of a place that once meant something, before tonight. King Lucian Thorne stands behind her, close enough that she can hear the scrape of his armor when he breathes, far enough that the space between them feels like a choice. His choice. Sunlight catches the tears on her face before they fall. She doesn't wipe them. Let him see them. Let him stand close enough to see exactly what his ink has done. She reads the decree again. Every word has already found bone, but she reads it anyway. The way you press a bruise to make sure it's real. House Vale is stripped of title. Vale Manor is seized by royal authority. All protections are withdrawn before midnight. Her lips part. Nothing comes out. Near the altar steps, half buried in shattered glass, a crown lies on its side. One of his guards must have dropped it during the raid. Or maybe Lucian hasn't noticed it yet. She can't look at it for long. Seraphina. Her name in his mouth lands differently than it used to. Worse now. She turns slowly. The torn sleeve of her green dress clings to her arm. Dust in the crease of her collarbone. A thin line of dried blood near her throat where flying glass caught her during the raid, sometime between the screaming and the silence. She didn't notice it until the blood was already dry. Lucian's eyes go straight to it. He takes half a step forward. She steps back. His hand stops in the air between them. Just stops, like he caught himself doing something he had no right to do. Outside, the bells of Ravensshire begin to toll. Deep. Slow. Each strike rolling through the cathedral stones like something being sealed. 1, 2, 3. The decree stopped being a threat the moment those bells started. Now it's law. Seraphina presses the parchment to her chest, both hands flat, as if she could hold her family together through paper alone. My brother is in Blackmoor Keep. Lucian's jaw tightens. She watches it happen. So you know, she says. Flat. Quiet. Not a question. He looks past her for 1 second, toward the chapel doors where 2 royal banners hang torn from their poles, and in that glance she sees everything she needs to. Not regret. Not confusion. A choice he made before he walked through those doors, when he is still standing in. My father died believing your crown would protect us. Something moves across Lucian's face, but not enough. Not nearly enough for the servants dragged from Vale Manor. Not enough for Adrian's wrists in chains, 12 years old, scrapes still on his knuckles from climbing the west tree in the orchard last spring. She lifts the decree between them. You didn't just reject me. The parchment trembles in the cold air between their bodies. You erased us. Lucian closes his fingers into a fist at his side. Leather creaks. His glove goes white at the knuckles. I had no clean path. She laughs. It breaks before it becomes sound. No. She looks at the overturned crown. You had a throne. His eyes flash, gold, sudden, violent, and for one breath the wolf in him presses close to the surface. Bright. Trapped. Something that doesn't know how to live behind a king's face. Seraphina should step back from that. She doesn't. Let him see it. Let him stand close enough to smell the smoke in her hair, the blood on her skin, the rain soaked into the hem of her dress. Let him look at the woman he condemned and call it necessary. If you leave this cathedral, Lucian says quietly, the council will take you before dawn. Then I should go quickly. You will not survive them. She folds the decree once, carefully, even though the edges are ragged, and it won't fold cleanly. She does it anyway. House Vale did not survive you. That one lands. She can see it. The way his shoulders shift under the black armor. The way his mouth opens and finds nothing. No command. No apology. No prepared answer for the woman he has just made homeless and brotherless in a single page of ink. For the first time since she walked into St. Aldrich's, King Lucian Thorne looks less like a ruler and more like a man standing before the blade he made himself. But Seraphina has no room left for his ruin. She barely has room for her own. The cathedral doors groan open behind her. Cold air floods in. A royal rider stumbles through the gap, rain streaming from his cloak, one hand pressed to his ribs. He drops to one knee. His eyes lift toward Seraphina before they find the king. My king. His breath tears through his teeth. Blackmoor keep assent terms. Her grip tightens on the folded decree. The rider swallows. They will hang Lord Vale at sunrise, unless Lady Seraphina surrenders herself before the final bell. She doesn't move. The words stay in the cold air and she doesn't move. Lord Vale. Her little brother's title sounds too large for him. For the boy who hides sugared almonds in his cuffs and forgets to bow when he's angry, who bit a soldier once rather than beg. 12 years old. Thin as a reed. Stubborn enough to make stubbornness its own weapon. Sunrise. The final bell. Lucian crosses the cathedral in 3 strides and grabs the rider by the shoulder before the man can collapse. Who gave the order? The rider's mouth opens. Rainwater runs from his lashes. His eyes flick once towards Seraphina, then away. Lucian's fingers tighten. Say it. The Northern Council, Your Majesty. A crack runs through the silence. Not stone. Seraphina's breath. The folded decree buckles in her hand. She looks down at her palm, black wax smeared across the lifeline, bleeding into her skin like it belongs there now. Lucian releases the rider slowly. She turns toward the doors. He steps into her path. No. One word. Quiet enough that the guards don't react. Loud enough that it stops her like a wall. She looks up at him. You heard him. I heard a trap. My brother is not a trap. He is bait. Her hand lifts before she decides. The slap cracks across his face. Nobody moves. The nearest torch spits in the draft. Lucian's head stays turned. One breath, then another. A red mark rises beneath his beard. Her palm burns. Don't make him smaller, so your choice looks cleaner. His eyes return to hers, gold pressing behind the dark. There is no clean choice inside Blackmoor Keep. There was one inside this cathedral. She pushes past him. He catches her wrist. Not hard, just enough. The contact lands wrong, his glove cold from rain, but heat moving beneath it, alive, specific, directed at her and no one else. She looks down at his hand until he releases her. The shape of his grip stays on her skin after his fingers are gone. She's noticed that before. She has spent years pretending she hasn't. You go there, Lucian says, and they will not bargain. They will close the gates and put him where you can hear him and never reach him. Then send your army. His mouth stills. There it is, the answer before he gives it. She steps closer and makes him face it. You can't. His silence opens under her feet like water. The crown near the altar catches a thin blade of light. How many banners at Blackmoor? Lucian asks the rider. 7 outside the eastern wall. More on the road from Vale Manor. Her stomach folds. Vale Manor. The rider lowers his eyes. By dawn, my lady. The council men carry royal papers. Royal papers. His papers. Her father's study. Her mother's chapel with its small painted saints. The orchard where Adrian broke his arm falling from the west tree. Swore he'd never climb it again, and climbed it the following spring. All of it opened under Lucian's seal, by men who have never learned a single name carved into the ground beneath it. She turns the decree over in her hand. 3 lines, enough to empty a bloodline. I can delay the seizure, Lucian says. Can you undo it? The bells answer before he can. A deeper sound rolls from the high tower of Ravensshire Palace, heavier than St. Aldrich's, older, final. Lucian's face drains. The guards lower their heads. The decree is no longer waiting to become law. It has become law, and somewhere beyond the rain, Blackmoor Keep has started counting toward sunrise. Read the terms, Lucian says. The writer produces a second parchment wrapped in oilskin. The seal stamped across it is not the silver wolf of House Thorn. A circle of 7 black thorns. She has seen that seal once, on a letter her father burned without reading aloud. The writer breaks the seal with trembling fingers and reads. Lady Seraphina Vale is to present herself at Blackmoor Keep before the final bell preceding sunrise. Failure to comply will result in the public execution of Lord Adrian Vale. Adrian. His name is harder to hear than his title. She sees him as she left him that morning, mud on his boots, one hand behind his back because he had stolen pears before breakfast, grinning when she caught him. The grin of a boy who knows he's caught and simply does not care. That grin is 12 years old. Blackmoor doesn't care. Lucian reads the final terms in silence. The muscle in his jaw jumps. What does it say? He doesn't answer. He walks to the broken altar, braces both hands against cracked marble, and stays there, breathing. She follows him. Lucian. When he speaks, his voice sounds like something scraped from the bottom of him. If you go to Blackmoor Keep, they will not release Adrian. Then this was never a bargain. No. At last he turns. The king is still there, but thinner now, stretched over something raw and restless. They want you inside their walls. She searches his face. For what? His eyes drop briefly to her hand. The decree she is still holding, still carrying, even now. When he looks up, something guarded has sealed over. I don't know. The lie is almost perfect. Almost. She watches the pulse jump once at his throat. She has seen that tell before. On Greyfen Road, years ago, when he was still just a wounded boy bleeding into the mud. She learned his face that night. Every shift of it. She has spent 5 years wishing she hadn't. You knew before tonight, she says. Lucian's throat moves. How long have you known what I am to you? His lips part. Nothing comes, but his hand closes around the cracked wolf ring. Hard enough that blood beads beneath the metal. Blood wells under Lucian's ring and runs into the cracked black stone. Seraphina watches it gather there and the cathedral tilts. Not enough to fall. Just enough for the rainwater on the floor to become mud. Just enough for the shattered glass beneath her boots to become wet leaves. Just enough for Lucian's face to thin into a younger version. Pale beneath smoke, mouth bloodied, eyes burning gold through the dark. Greyfen Road. A carriage on its side in a ditch. Horses screaming. The air thick with sap and iron and burned wool. She is smaller in that memory. Her braid half undone. Traveling cloak torn at the shoulder. Her father's men scattered by an ambush that swallowed the road in 30 seconds. A boy drags himself through bracken toward a fallen sword. Not a king. Not yet. Lucian. His hand slips in the mud before reaching the blade. A black-fletched arrow juts from his side. Another has torn through his arm. His wolf is close to the surface, but too wounded to rise. Gold pulses in his eyes. Then gutters. She should run. Her father was shouting her name from beyond the overturned carriage. Men were still fighting through the trees. Lucian looks up at her. Not commanding. Not proud. Just alive enough to know he is about to stop being alive. He reaches for the sword again. His fingers miss. A masked rider steps from the smoke and lifts a spear. Seraphina moves. She doesn't remember deciding. She throws herself over Lucian's body as the spear comes down, and the blade meant for his heart tears through the wolf ring on his hand instead. The black stone cracks, a sound like ice splitting on a lake. His blood hits her wrist. The rider jerks back, startled by the small body suddenly between him and the prince. Seraphina grabs the fallen sword with both hands. It is too heavy. She swings it anyway. The blade catches the rider's knee. He drops. Lucian's hand closes around hers from below, bloody fingers locking over her knuckles, guiding the sword up before the rider can rise. The sound that follows is wet, then quiet. She cannot let go of the sword. He cannot let go of her. His gold eyes fix on their joined hands. A low sound moves through him, not aimed at her, not aimed at the trees, but deep inside his own chest, like something recognizing something. The cracked ring burns cold against her skin. Do not let go. She doesn't know whose voice says it. His, hers, something older than either of them. The memory folds hard. St. Aldrich's comes back in fragments. Lucian standing too close. Blood still caught beneath his ring. The cathedral that used to feel like sanctuary. She pulls air into her lungs as if she's been underwater. Greyfen Road, she says quietly. Lucian closes his eyes. You knew then. His eyes open. I knew there was a bond. Each word costs him something. I didn't know what it would become. She takes that in without blinking. You let me stand in court beside men who wanted my family stripped, she says. You let them call my father traitor. You let them put Adrian in chains. Something tightens in his face at her brother's name. I kept them from taking you. You signed the paper that gave them permission. His mouth closes. No defense comes. The silence between them changes shape. She sees the line of his throat, the blood on his ring, the crown near the altar steps, lying in the dark. The boy on Greyfen Road doesn't exist anymore. The man in front of her has power enough to condemn a house with ink and not enough to stop the bell tower. And you said nothing. He steps closer, close enough that she can see the exhaustion beneath his eyes, the rain caught in his lashes, the sleepless hollow of a man who has been carrying something too long in silence. If I accuse Cedric Thorne without proof, he says, half the northern houses ride behind him by sunrise. She stares at him. Her brother is in chains. Her home is being emptied room by room. And Lucian is asking her to weigh Adrian's life against a kingdom. She lets out a breath that shakes. So this is your choice. His throat works. If I expose Cedric tonight, thousands die. The rain grows heavier against the roof. If I stay silent, he says, I lose you. The words hang between them. No crown between them now. No title. Just the man who stood bleeding on Greyfen Road, and the king who signed away her life. She feels both of them at once. That is the cruelty of it. She wants to hate him cleanly. The truth won't let her. I will go to Blackmoor Keep, she says. Lucian goes still. I'm not asking permission. She steps back before he can reach her. If there's even a chance Adrian walks free, I take it. His eyes flash gold. You don't know what they want from you. Neither do you. That lands. For the first time, fear cuts through the king's composure and there is nothing left behind it. She turns toward the cathedral doors. Behind her, his voice drops to something quieter than command, more dangerous for it. If you walk out of St. Aldrich's alone, Seraphina. She stops, hand on the rain-soaked wood. I don't know if my wolf will let me survive it. If you walk out of St. Aldrich's alone. His voice follows her into the rain. I don't know if my wolf will let me survive it. Her hand tightens on the cathedral door. For one breath she stays, storm on her face, his words against her back, the bond pulling like a wound reopened under the ribs. Every part of her that remembers Greyfen Road wants to turn around. Then Blackmoor's first horn sounds across Ravensshire. Low, distant, hungry. She steps outside. The cathedral steps shine black in the rain. 7 council riders wait beyond the iron lamps, cloaks marked with black thorns, horses restless. None of them draw steel. They don't need to. The rider at the front extends one hand. No greeting, no bow. She gives him the ruined decree. He glances at the torn seal, then at her face. You come without escort. She lifts her chin. I come for Lord Adrian Vale. His eyes slide past her toward the open cathedral doors. Lucian stands in the shadow behind her, still as a drawn blade. The rider smiles without warmth. Then His Majesty understands obedience after all. The sound that comes from Lucian is not human. Every horse in the line lurches back. Seraphina turns just enough to look at him. Don't. She doesn't say it aloud. His eyes burn gold through the rain. His hands hang at his sides, fingers flexing, once, twice, like something sharp is pressing under the skin trying to find its way out. She walks down the steps before he can move. The council riders close around her. No chains. That is worse. They want her walking, on her own feet, willing or near enough to it. The road to Blackmoor cuts through the northern edge of Ravensshire, past shuttered shops, past watchfires, past fields where the storm has flattened the grass silver. Behind her, St. Aldrich's disappears in rain and distance. Lucian doesn't follow. She knows because the bond stretches with each hoofbeat, like thread being drawn from flesh, slow and specific to him. Blackmoor rises before dawn touches the sky. Walls darker than the storm. Towers narrow and wet. The gate crowned with iron spikes. Torches burning blue along the battlements. Men watching from above without speaking. The portcullis lifts. She enters. The courtyard smells of cold stone and old water. And at the far end, beneath the hanging platform, Adrian Vale stands with a rope around his neck. He is barefoot. One side of his face is swollen. But when he sees her, he shakes his head hard enough that the rope bites at his throat. No, he mouths. Don't. Her knees nearly go. A councilman steps from beneath the archway. Tall, spare, dark formal coat. Lord Cedric Thorne's hair is silver at the temples, untouched by rain. He looks less like a traitor and more like a man arriving early to supper. Lady Seraphina, he says pleasantly. She doesn't answer. Her eyes stay on Adrian. Cedric follows her gaze with the patience of a man who has already won. A moving devotion. House Vale always did breed loyalty before wisdom. Release him. He lifts 2 fingers. The executioner loosens the rope by half an inch. Adrian drags in air. Not freedom. A demonstration. Seraphina's hands curl. I came, she says. As agreed. Yes. Cedric studies her the way physicians study a wound. And the king allowed it. He doesn't allow me. No. Cedric steps closer. He marks you. The courtyard stills. Rain ticking against armor. Stone. Rope. Cedric removes a folded parchment from his coat and opens it under the torchlight. Not a surrender order. A bloodline chart. She sees the Vale crest at the top, inked beside older symbols she doesn't recognize. Wolf marks. Crown marks. Name struck through. Name circled in red. Her father's name circled. Hers beneath it. Cedric watches her eyes move. We never needed your surrender, Lady Seraphina. He smiles. We needed confirmation. The bond flares, sudden, violent, and every torch in the courtyard bends hard toward the gate. Cedric's expression sharpens. There it is. A second horn sounds from the road beyond Blackmoor. Lucian. The gates begin to close. Cedric looks almost pleased. He felt that. Guard sees her arms. She struggles once. They hold. Cedric steps close and lowers his voice as the iron portcullis grinds down behind her. Tell me, Lady Seraphina. His eyes drop to her stomach. Has the sickness started yet? Or does King Lucian still not know what he put inside you? Seraphina's body goes silent. Not still. Silent. Even the rain seems to pull back from her skin. The guard's hands remain locked on her arms, but she feels only the place beneath her ribs where the bond has been burning all night. Cedric watches her face. That is how she knows. He wanted the reaction before he wanted the answer. Adrian strains against the rope. The executioner yanks him back by the collar. The sound that leaves her brother is small enough to end whatever air remains in her chest. Don't touch him, she says. Cedric's eyes stay on her stomach. Then stop pretending this is about your brother. The portcullis slams behind her. The sound rolls through Blackmoor, keep like a tomb being sealed. Outside, another horn sounds. Closer. Every torch along the wall bends toward the gate. Horses scream beyond the iron. Men shout. Steel scrapes from scabbards above the battlements. She twists against the guards. They hold. Adrian kicks against the platform. Let her go. The rope cuts his words short. Seraphina stops fighting. Not surrender. Calculation. Her wrists ache. Her dress clings cold against her legs. The bloodline chart hangs open in the rain. ink blurring around her name. A royal child. A Vale heir. A weapon neither crown nor council can afford to leave unclaimed. The gate shudders. Once. The whole courtyard flinches. A second blow. Iron groans. The portcullis buckles inward. Not fully. Just enough for every man in Blackmoor to understand what is on the other side. Lucian's voice cuts through the storm. Open it. No command has ever sounded less like a request. Cedric turns toward the sound, annoyance cracking the polished surface of his face. The gate lifts. Chains scream through stone. Lucian stands beyond it without a cloak. Rain plastering dark hair to his face, armor cut across one shoulder, sword bare in his hand. Behind him, royal riders fill the road. Not enough to storm a fortress, enough to die loudly at its gate. His eyes find Seraphina across the courtyard. The distance narrows to that single line of sight. She watches him take it in, guards on her arms, Adrian on the platform, the bloodline chart dissolving in the rain. Then his gaze drops to her stomach. Something breaks across his face. Not loudly, not theatrically. The way a blade breaks under pressure. Sudden, clean, impossible to mend. Cedric sees it too. There, he says softly. The king finally understands the size of his mistake. Lucian steps through the gate. Cedric raises one finger. Archers appear along the wall. The choice spreads across the courtyard in steel and rain. If Lucian attacks, Adrian dies first. If Lucian obeys, Seraphina is lost behind Blackmoor's walls. If he hesitates, the council owns the hour. Cedric holds out a dry parchment sealed with black thorns. By authority of the Northern Council, King Lucian Thorne is required to reaffirm the dissolution of House Vale, deny unlawful bond claim, and surrender Lady Seraphina for bloodline examination. Lucian does not take it. Cedric's mouth thins. Refusal will be regarded as abandonment of lawful rule. The silence that follows is large enough to hold a kingdom. Rain runs down Lucian's face. His sword lowers. Then he reaches inside his coat and produces the original decree. The one with his seal. The one that stripped her name and her home and everything else that mattered. He looks at it, then at Seraphina. No apology comes. No excuse. No explanation for any of it. He tears it in half. The sound is small. The effect is not. A murmur runs across Blackmoor's walls. One of the royal riders crosses himself. Cedric's face hardens. Lucian tears the decree again. And again. Black wax falls into the mud. The silver wolf splits under his boot. I revoke every word signed against House Vale. You cannot revoke law under threat, Cedric says. Lucian's eyes don't leave Seraphina. I signed it under threat. The courtyard turns colder. He throws the torn decree into the rain. House Vale remains under crown protection. Adrian Vale is released to my custody. He crosses the courtyard. The guards holding Seraphina shift, but none dare move her. He stops close enough that she can see blood drying beneath the cracked wolf ring. His voice lowers, but everyone hears it. No. He removes the crown seal from his belt and lets it fall into the mud between them. My claim. Seraphina cannot breathe. Cedric's face goes blank. Lucian turns to the gathered riders, council guards, archers, and men watching from the walls. By blood, bond, and witness, I name Seraphina Vale my mate. The word strikes the courtyard open. Adrian goes still on the platform. The guards release her, as if her skin burns. Lucian reaches for her. This time she doesn't step away. Cedric's voice slices through the rain. Then by lawful authority of the Council of Seven, I declare King Lucian Thorne compromised by bond madness, unfit to rule, and subject to immediate arrest. Every arrow on Blackmoor's walls turns toward the king. Every arrow turns toward the king. Lucian doesn't move. Seraphina does. She steps in front of him before the first bowstring fully tightens, one hand still caught in his, the other pressing flat against her own stomach. The guards on the wall hesitate. Not from mercy. Calculation. Cedric sees it. His mouth thins. Don't hide behind her, Lucian. Lucian's hand tightens around hers. She feels the tremor in his fingers, brief, buried, the kind of tremor a man only allows when he thinks no one is paying attention. His sword drops point first into the mud. Dull. Final. Several royal riders shift. One lowers his blade. Another dozen. The fracture runs through them quietly, steel by steel, oath by oath. Cedric lifts his hand. Take him. No one moves. Rain against the courtyard stones. Adrian rigid beneath the scaffold. The rope loose enough for breath, tight enough for warning. Seraphina looks at him. His face twists around a silent plea she refuses to obey. Now, a bowstring sings. Lucian pulls Seraphina behind him in the same breath. The arrow strikes his shoulder with a wet crack. He doesn't make a sound. She does. His blood hits her hand. Hot through the rain. The courtyard erupts. Royal riders surge forward. Council guards close ranks. Hooves skid across stone. Someone screams near the scaffold. Lucian catches the next blade on his forearm, drives his elbow into a guard's throat, and reaches for Seraphina without looking, always knowing where she is. That shouldn't undo her. It does. She sees both of them in the same body, the man who signed away her family and the boy bleeding in the mud on Greyfen Road, both reaching for her as if the world narrows to the space she occupies. A council guard grabs her from behind. She drives her heel into his knee and tears free. Lucian turns at the sound. The arrow in his shoulder shifts. His face goes white. Don't, she snaps. He stops reaching. Not because he agrees, because she told him to. One thin, impossible breath. Then Adrian kicks the platform hard enough to knock the executioner sideways. Seraphina runs. Cedric sees too late. She reaches the scaffold steps as the executioner lunges, snatches the knife from his belt and cuts upward, sawing through the rope with both hands, arms shaking, while Adrian chokes above her. Lucian reaches the base of the scaffold and catches the executioner's arm before the axe falls. Bone breaks. The rope snaps. Adrian drops into her arms, all elbows and rain and shaking breath. She folds over him, knife still clutched in one hand, cheek pressed into his wet hair. For 3 heartbeats the courtyard disappears. He is breathing. That is the only world. Lucian steps onto the scaffold, blood running down his sleeve, eyes burning bright enough that the nearest guards step back. He looks at Seraphina, then at Adrian, then at the torn rope at their feet. His mouth opens. No words come. Seraphina rises slowly, keeping Adrian behind her. Lucian's gaze drops to her hand over her stomach. The question lives there. So does the wound. She reaches for his wrist. Not forgiveness. Not surrender. A choice made with shaking fingers and no clean place to stand. His breath catches when her hand closes around the cracked wolf ring. The bond steadies. Not softly, like a blade finding its hilt, a thing that was always meant to fit, but has been missing too long. Cedric's voice cuts from below. Touching him won't restore what he destroyed. She looks down at Lucian's uncle. No. Her fingers tighten around Lucian's wrist. But silence will finish it. Lucian's face turns toward her. Rain on his jaw. Blood darkening his collar. His crown seals somewhere in the mud below. Already trampled. She holds his gaze. I won't be hidden behind your protection again. I know. You won't sign papers over my life and call it mercy. I know. And if I stand beside you, I stand with my own voice. Around them, swords remain raised. Archers remain drawn. Raven's hire hangs by a thread thinner than the one she cut from Adrian's neck. Lucian bows his head, not as king to subject, not as ruler granting permission, as a man accepting a cost. Cedric watches the movement and something cold settles into his face. He turns from the scaffold toward the wall. Raise the banners. At first, she hears only the rain. Then cloth snaps open above Blackmoor Keep. Not the Silver Wolf. Not House Thorn. 7 blackthorn banners rise one by one against the pale edge of dawn. And beyond the gate, answering banners appear on the northern road to Raven's Hire. The war that's been simmering under Lucian's reign has finally broken the surface, and they are standing in the middle of it, together, whether she's ready for that or not. The arrow comes out just before dawn. Seraphina does it herself, because the camp healers are managing the wounded and because, though she would not say this aloud, she doesn't want anyone else's hands on him right now. She sits beside Lucian on an overturned crate in the smallest of Blackmoor's abandoned storerooms, which is as much privacy as a fortress under siege will offer. A torch burns low in the bracket on the wall. Rain still hammers the stones above them. Adrian is asleep 2 rooms over, wrapped in a borrowed soldier's cloak, his rope-burn wrists cleaned and bound. She checked on him twice already. She is checking on this instead. Hold still, she says. I am holding still. You're breathing too loudly. Lucian stares at her. That's not something a person can. Hold still. She presses the cloth to the wound, and he goes rigid. A sound catches in his throat. Not a word. Not a command. Just the sound. The sound of a man who is not accustomed to being hurt and is trying very hard not to show it. It's deep, she says. I'm aware. You could have avoided it. I was focused on something else. She glances up. His eyes are already on her. She looks back at the wound. You shouldn't have come, she says. Not like that. Not alone with half an army and no plan. I had a plan. What was the plan? Get you out. She presses harder than necessary. He hisses through his teeth. That's not a plan, she says. That's an impulse. It worked. It barely worked. You took an arrow. You took a knife to the hand. She pauses, looks down at the cut across her palm from the scaffold rope. She'd been so focused on Adrian she hadn't even felt it. She looks back up. That's different. How? Because you're the king. Something shifts in his face. Not tonight, I'm not. The torch flickers. Rain against stone. From somewhere deep in the fortress, she hears one of the injured soldiers call out in his sleep, and then go quiet. Her hands keep moving, cleaning, pressing, wrapping. And with each point of contact between her skin and his, something happens that she cannot explain and cannot afford to examine right now. Warmth. Steady. Spreading outward from wherever she touches him. The bond. She has felt it for years. She has spent years pretending it was something else. You knew on Greyfen Road, she says. He doesn't answer immediately. She takes that as a yes. And you still signed the decree. Yes. Even knowing. Yes, Seraphina. His voice is quiet. Not defensive. Just tired. Bone tired in a way that has nothing to do with the arrow. I signed it. I knew what it would cost you. I signed it anyway. There is no version of that I can make sound acceptable. She ties off the bandage. The council threatened Adrian, he continues. If I refused the decree, if I fought them on any of it, they had enough northern houses behind them to move against Blackmoor the same night. Your brother would have been the first thing they used. She is quiet for a moment. You could have told me. I was trying to protect you. I know. Her voice comes out softer than she intends. That's why I'm still sitting here instead of walking out that door. He looks at her. Really looks at her. The way he looked at her on Greyfen Road when she was 14, and terrifying and standing between him and a spear, as if she were something he could not account for in any language he knew. What does the bloodline chart mean, she asks. His jaw tightens. It means Cedric has known about the bond longer than either of us. And the child is real. His voice drops, or will be. The bond between mates, when it strengthens past a certain point, he stops. Starts again. I didn't know until tonight. When he said it, she lets that sit between them. Were you going to tell me? I was trying to find the right. Were you going to tell me? Yes. No hesitation this time. Yes. She believes him. She doesn't know if that makes it better or worse. What happens now, she asks. Lucian looks toward the door where the dark corridor runs toward the courtyard and the banners and the war that is no longer theoretical. Cedric will move on the capital within a week. The northern houses will follow him. We have, he calculates, 3 days before his riders reach Raven's higher ahead of us. And Adrian comes with us, under my protection. Full reinstatement of House Vale. I'll sign it in front of every remaining lord who'll hold a pen. She searches his face for the calculation, for the political angle, for the thing he is getting out of this. She doesn't find it. Why, she asks. Because it's right. He meets her gaze. And because you asked me once on Greyfen Road, though you don't remember saying it, you asked me to remember that not every choice has to come down to the numbers. She was 14. She doesn't remember saying it, but she believes she did. She stands and begins to gather the bandages. His hand moves, almost reaches for hers, then stops. Seraphina. She pauses without turning. I don't expect you to forgive any of it, he says. I'm not asking for that. I'm asking, he stops again. I don't know what I'm asking. She turns around. His face is open in a way she has never seen it before. The king stripped back to the man. The armor and the title and the 5 years of careful, deliberate distance, all of it gone. Just him. Just Lucian. You're asking me not to leave, she says. He doesn't deny it. She looks at him for a long moment. At the bandage she just tied. At the cracked wolf ring. At the face that has been the source of every complicated feeling she has ever tried to flatten into something manageable and failed. I'm not leaving, she says. That was never the plan. She picks up the kit and walks to the door. But you're going to rebuild Vale Manor, she says without looking back. Every room, every stone, and the orchard. West-facing windows, he says. She pauses. For the sunsets, he adds. And somehow he says it like he's known about the sunsets from the orchard her whole life, and has just been waiting for the right moment to mention it. She walks out without responding, but in the dark of the corridor, for the first time since she stood in St. Aldrich's holding that decree with both hands, she breathes. Dawn finds them on horseback. Adrian rides between them, still pale, rope marks dark on his neck, wearing borrowed boots 2 sizes too large, but upright, eyes tracking, occasionally glancing between Seraphina and Lucian with an expression she will have to address eventually. Not today. The road to Ravensshire stretches, silver ahead of them. Behind, Blackmoor's banners are changing hands. Cedric's riders have pulled back to regroup. They underestimated how many of the garrison would switch allegiance the moment Lucian tore the decree in front of them. Soldiers, it turns out, do not love the Northern Council. They love a king who steps through a gate unarmed to get a woman out. She is not ready to say that out loud. He keeps staring at you, Adrian says. I know. It's a lot. I know, Adrian. Are you going to do anything about it? She looks straight ahead. I'm doing something about it right now. You're ignoring him. That's doing something. Adrian rides in silence for 3 seconds. He tore the decree in half. I saw. In front of everyone. I was there. And dropped his crown seal in the mud. Adrian, I'm just saying, her brother says, with the particular dignity of a 12-year-old who has recently survived a hanging and feels this entitles him to opinions. If someone did that for me, I'd probably talk to them. Lucian, riding 2 lengths back and absolutely within earshot, says nothing. Seraphina rides in silence for a moment. Then, his horse favors his left front. Someone should check it before we reach the city. A beat of silence behind her. Then the soft sound of Lucian dismounting. Adrian looks at her sideways. She doesn't look back, but she allows herself a very small, very private adjustment of the mouth that is not quite a smile. By the time they reach the first way station outside Ravensshire, word has already traveled ahead of them. People line the road. Not cheering, not yet, not with Cedric's banners still visible on the northern horizon, but watching. Quietly, a farmer with his hat in his hands, a woman with 2 children pressed against her skirts, an old man who drops to 1 knee in the mud as they pass and does not get up until they are gone. Adrian watches all of it. They know, he says. They always know, Seraphina tells him. They just wait to see who survives before they decide what to feel. Lucian rides up alongside her. He has been at 2 lengths distance since morning, present, watchful, not crowding her, and she has noticed every inch of it. The council will reach Ravenshire's outer walls in 2 days, he says. Possibly 1.5. And our forces? Enough. If the eastern holdings hold. He pauses. Francis, your brother's contact in the eastern garrison. He's already sent riders. She blinks. You spoke to my family's contacts. You were unconscious for 4 hours, Seraphina. I had time. She stares at him. He stares back. Something in his expression that is not quite apology and not quite smugness. Just a man who did not waste 4 hours. The Eastern Holdings have held the line against the Northern Council for 6 years, she says. They were my father's allies. I know. You stripped the Vale name. I know. So, when you reach out to them as the king asking for their riders, I reached out as the maid of Seraphina Vale. He says it without the flicker of a hesitation. Those were Hilda's exact words in the message. She opens her mouth, closes it, and they responded, she finally asks. 1,200 riders. By dawn tomorrow. She faces forward again. The road into Ravensshire opens ahead of them. Wide, rain-washed, lined with the old stone markers that have stood since before any of their names meant anything. You could have told me this an hour ago, she says. You would have asked 12 questions. I have 12 questions. I know. And quietly, almost to himself, that's one of the things I missed most. She does not respond to that. But she lets her horse fall back, just slightly, until she is riding beside him instead of ahead. Not behind him. Not in front of him. Beside him. The way she stood at Blackmoor Keep, with the torn rope still trailing behind her and the banners rising against the dawn. Adrian notices. Says nothing. He is 12 years old and has recently survived a hanging, but he is a Vale, which means he understands that some things are bigger than a single night and cannot be resolved with a sentence. He rides quietly between them, the three of them together, on the road to a city that doesn't know yet what it's about to become. The city does not erupt. That is the first thing she notices as they ride through Ravenshire's main gate. No cheering, no throwing of flowers, no declaration, just the ordinary sounds of a city that has heard something and is holding its breath, the way a held breath sounds when the chest is too tight for air. Lucian has been to war. He knows what a held city feels like. He rides through it like a man who does not require permission to be somewhere. She watches people watch him, and then she watches them look at her. Not with the gaze they usually reserve for her, the ward, the Vale girl, the one who doesn't quite belong. This gaze is different, careful, trying to understand what she means in relation to him. What it means that she is here at his side, in torn green silk with dried blood at her throat and rope cuts on her palm. What it means that she came back. She holds the gaze of every face that meets hers. She does not look away first. The council's riders reach the city by mid-morning. Not enough to attack, not yet, but enough to line the northern wall with Cedric's Blackthorn banners where everyone can see them. A declaration. This is not finished. Lucian convenes the inner council within the hour. Seraphina sits at the table. Not beside him. Not behind him. At the table. She takes the chair that has been empty since her father died. She did not plan this. She did not arrange it. She simply sat down and no one moved her. And she spreads the bloodline chart Cedric had opened in Blackmoor's courtyard, which she folded into her dress before they left. She has been thinking about it since dawn. This isn't about the bond, she says. Not primarily. The room looks at her. The bond is leverage. What they actually want is here. She points to the older symbols beside the Vale crest. Wolf marks. Lineage indicators she doesn't have the training to fully read, but she has been looking at them for 6 hours and she has learned enough. Someone explained to me what this bloodline produces. Silence around the table. Lucian's chancellor, old Lord Darrow, leans forward. He looks at the chart for a long moment. That, he says quietly, is the sequence for a bloodbound heir. She waits. A child born of a fated bond between a shifter line and a Vale bloodline carries, theoretically, both, the wolf and the human gift. He looks up at her. It would be the first in 300 years. She does not look at Lucian, which means, she says, the child is not leverage for the council. No, says Lord Darrow. The child is the point. The room is very quiet. Cedric wanted me inside those walls, she says, so the child would be born under his authority. Not yours. She finally looks at Lucian. He wasn't trying to use me against you. He was trying to use the next generation. Lucian's face is still. Completely still. The way water goes still before something moves beneath it. Then we move first, he says. We move correctly, she says. Which is different. He looks at her. If we ride out against Cedric the way you want to, the way I know you want to, we give him exactly what he needs. A king who acts on instinct instead of strategy, and a council that can point to it. She spreads her palms on the table. Rope cuts, ink stains, the ghost of black wax that won't quite come off. We give him this instead. She nods to Lord Darrow. A full public acknowledgement of the Vale bloodline, signed and witnessed. Cedric's case rests on the claim that my family committed treason. Remove the treason, remove his justification for everything that follows. It requires the original evidence, Lord Darrow says carefully. Lord Cedric holds. Lord Cedric holds a forgery. She keeps her voice flat. Matter of fact. My father's seal was pressed into wax on documents he never saw. I know this because I have seen my father's actual seal. I have it. And it does not match the impressions on the council's copy by a 16th of an inch. The room absorbs that. Lucian is looking at her with an expression she does not have a name for. How long have you known? He asks. Since I was 17. She meets his eyes. I was waiting for a king who would do something about it. The silence that follows is the specific silence of a room full of powerful people realizing they have been thinking about something incorrectly. Adrian, sitting against the wall where she put him because she was not ready to explain his presence at a war council, but was less ready to leave him unattended, eats an apple he found somewhere and watches all of this with tremendous interest. The council session runs 4 hours. By the end of it, 3 things have been drafted, witnessed, and sealed. The full reinstatement of House Vale, the public declaration of Lord Cedric Thorne's original fraud and the evidence supporting it, and a joint summons to the northern houses, not from the crown alone, but from the crown and from Seraphina Vale, asking them to consider which side of the coming war they want their names attached to when it is written down. Lucian's name on one side of the parchment, hers on the other, her handwriting next to his, in black ink, no seal required. Her name alone is enough. She looks at both signatures for a long moment before the wax is poured. Then she hands it to Lord Darrow. That evening, she finds Lucian on the ramparts. He is looking north toward the line of Cedric's encampment visible on the dark horizon. Small fires, black thorn banners just visible against the last of the light. She stands beside him, not speaking, just there. For a while, neither of them says anything. The city settles beneath them, lanterns coming on in the streets, the smell of rain and stone, and somewhere, someone cooking over a fire, something ordinary and warm. You've been waiting to do that for 10 years, he says finally. He means the council chamber, the evidence, the signatures. 8, she says. I was still learning to read the seal marks at 17. His mouth moves. That's not funny, he says, but his voice says something different. It's a little funny. He looks at her. Truly looks, not with the careful, king-shaped gaze she has navigated her whole adult life. With the gold that doesn't come out during council sessions and speeches and signed decrees. I am going to spend the rest of my life making this right, he says. She considers that. You're going to spend the rest of your life ruling a kingdom, she says, which means making it right is going to be slow and complicated, and there will be moments when you get it wrong again. Yes, and when that happens, I'm going to tell you. I'm counting on it. She looks back out at the northern horizon, at Cedric's fires, west-facing windows, she says. I already told the architects. She turns to look at him. He is against all reason, given the arrow wound and the broken decree and the war on the horizon and everything else, almost smiling. I sent the commission this afternoon, he says, while you were in the council chamber. They'll begin the foundation before the first frost. She stares at him. You were in a war council. I can do 2 things. Lucian. The sun sets in the Vale orchard face west, he says simply. I looked it up. She looks at him for a long moment. She thinks about the boy on Greyfen Road who held her hand and didn't know yet what it meant. She thinks about the decree, about the stain that doesn't come off. She thinks about Adrian eating an apple against the war room wall, alive. She thinks about the bloodline chart and the child that is not yet real, and the world that is already trying to make it a weapon. She thinks about west-facing windows and sunsets, and the specific, impossible softness of a man who sent an architectural commission in the middle of a war, because she mentioned a detail once years ago in passing, and he remembered. Don't do that, she says. Do what? Make it difficult to stay angry at you. I'm not trying to make it difficult. You're absolutely trying. He doesn't deny it. She looks back at the fires on the horizon, the city lights below, the stars beginning to show through the clearing storm. The decree is gone, she says. The stain isn't. No, he agrees. It isn't. And Adrian's wrist won't heal overnight. No. And my father is still dead. Yes. His voice is quiet. He is. She breathes. Just breathes. But the orchard is still there, she says. Yes. And the west tree. Still standing, she is quiet for another moment. Then she reaches across the distance between them, small, precise, and takes his hand. Not his wrist, not his ring, his hand. He goes very still, doesn't move, barely breathes, like a man who has learned not to reach for things that have disappeared before. She doesn't let go. One more time, she says. He looks at her. If you sign something over my head again, anything, any paper, any order, any word with your seal on it that involves my life or my brother's life or my family's name, and I find out after the fact, you will know before the ink is wet, he says. No hesitation, no qualification. Every time, for the rest of it. She studies his face, the gold in his eyes, the cracked ring, the man and the wolf and the king, all in the same body, waiting. All right, she says. She doesn't move away. He doesn't move toward her. They stand together on the ramparts with the city below, and the war on the horizon, and Adrian somewhere behind them eating his second apple, and the decree long since dissolved into black threads in Blackmoor's mud. The stain remains, but so does everything else.